Hi, and welcome to our September 11th, 2018 lead teacher meeting. I hope that this finds everybody well and with little to no damage from hurricane and flooding. My heart and prayers go out to all of you. I wanted to just spend this time, since we didn't get to meet in September, to go over some of the highlights from the meeting we would have had. And I'd like for you to please share this with your department members when the time is appropriate when you get back to school. A couple of things to think about. First, I'd like to welcome our new lead teachers this year. Everyone else is the same, but we do have Angie Cranford from Green Sea Floyd's Middle joining us, Tiffany Helms from Loris Middle, Catherine Tribal from Ocean Bay Middle, and Taylor Wims from Ten Oaks Middle joining us as new lead teachers this year. So we certainly welcome them. A couple of reminders in terms of lead teacher expectations. You will be responsible for attending the monthly meetings. You'll be reviewing any items and resources with your department members and submitting meeting minutes. And this can be done in a number of ways. I will share a template with you momentarily. Many of you used that in years past. Some of you last year started just making a copy of the slide deck that I share and putting your information in it as well, and then just sharing that slide deck with me with any of your notes and comments at the bottom of the slide, and that is fine as well. You'll be in charge of disseminating district and state ELA information in department meetings. That'll be information that I share with you, obviously. Replicate any of the activities that we do during the lead teacher meeting in your department meetings, because a lot of times I will try to do some structures or activities with you that would be relevant or pertinent to something that you're studying at that time in ELA that you can do with teachers that they can do with students. You also will be providing input on curriculum development and ensuring that our curriculum resources are aligned to our standards. This year I've added a feedback button to all of our consensus maps so that we can try to get our feedback in a more timely manner on those maps, and then we can start looking at suggestions for revision early on. And you will be revising any of the documents and adding new documents throughout the year. If you are unable to attend a meeting for some reason, please do your best to find another person to come in your place. If you copy your coach and your principal on any correspondence when you are asking others, then that lets them know that you're looking for somebody too. And oftentimes coaches will come in place of the lead teacher. So that would be really helpful to have somebody representative from your building to get this information and share it with others. The Achieve 3000 coaching visits, you'll see a document here on this slide of when your school signed up. We have postponed the visits for the first week and potentially the second week with those schools due to our being out, to get you guys back in and reacclimated with your schools and with your students. So I will let you know at a later date when we will resume those visits or reschedule any of those coaching visits. In terms of digital content guidelines and updates, for Achieve 3000, you'll notice the first hyperlink are the implementation guidelines. And as you're all aware, we have changed our implementation guidelines from 2 articles to 1 article a week with 1 thought question every month. And you'll see that the new conversion chart and rubric is also hyperlinked, as well as any report tutorials that you may need to brush up on as you get back. And I understand that a lot of you, or a lot of students, are probably still level set testing. So that would be the first order of business when we get back and get back into the swing of things. For No Red Ink, you'll see a whole list of bullets here, some new things that the program has included this year. Quick writes are a really neat thing. If you weren't able to attend the No Red Ink training, I think that they debuted this during this time, and it looks very similar to our TDA layout. So anytime you're doing a practice TDA in your classes, it may be good to use this Quick Write platform for that TDA administration, and that way you'll have all of the writing and everything in one platform. Peer reviews would also be another piece of feedback or a way for students to give each other feedback on their writing using No Red Ink. So if you haven't had a chance, please explore those quick writes and those peer reviews in your department meeting with your department members. They may not be aware of it. In terms of USA Test Prep, you have two-part questions now, which are very similar to SC Ready two-part questions, those Part A and Part B questions. So I would definitely look into those. The benchmarks have just been renamed as assessments. So anything that was called benchmark just is called assessment now. Nothing else has changed in terms of the functionality. And if for some reason you have been asked to share maybe some features of USA Test Prep to others in your building, then you definitely want to look at maybe this Google Slides presentation for that. In terms of digital differentiation, don't worry about this link right now. We'll talk about that in our meeting next month. I'm also going to skip over this. Last year we did our school spotlight. So each month, different members, different lead teachers shared things that their schools were doing well. And we had a really neat host of resources. So I'm thinking of this year just kind of doing an Ask the Expert. So if you want more help on a certain either digital content or item, then we can put that on the Padlet that is here. But right now, we're going to wait and do that when we can do it together. In terms of our current work, our department meeting template is linked here. And it will prompt you to make a copy when you open it up. And then when you make a copy of it, this will come up, and what you can do is put your school's name here, the date of the meeting, and what a lot of people have done is just kept a running document. So they put the October meeting here, and then they make another copy on the next page, so on and so forth for each subsequent meeting. For your goals, most schools have goals that are probably aligned to map into SC Ready. So if you'd put your school, your ELA department goals for your school in the first box, who attended, any agenda bullet items on the left-hand side, and then the notes that you guys have discussed on the right-hand side. And that way, if you have any questions or concerns, then I can go in here and make a comment on it. So if you'll share it with me and give me editing rights, that would help. As I mentioned earlier, some of you have made a copy of the presentation itself, added your information in, and then put your questions and comments in the notes box at the bottom, and that would be fine as well. In terms of our work for the next couple months, we're going to be looking at how your teachers in your building plan for instruction using the curriculum maps, and talk about how we could come up with some kind of weekly plan template. Considering that our next meeting is in just a few short weeks, I want to look at that more in depth during that time, but that will be our focus there in October. We'll also look at the computer science standards on the consensus maps and talk a little more in our groups about how your schools are working with the student digital portfolios if your school has chosen to participate in that initiative. And so as you can see here, you've got our focus for the next couple of months. In September, October, now we're going to look at the weekly ELA routine for planning for your building. In October, I'd like to, and possibly into November's meeting, it'll probably be November, bring a sample feedback activity for the text-dependent analysis, and we're going to be moving that date back as well. And then in November, looking at some summative assessments that are either built into our maps or some that we've used or developed in our departments, and discuss how those assessments align with SC Ready. Each of these things align with the domain, the planning domain on the SCTS rubric. And so we want to make sure that everything that we are doing in our classrooms is intentional and will support the bullets in the planning domain. The next couple of slides will just show some of the SC Ready data that we have in terms of strands. And so what I've done is I've put the grade level and the district information on the first slide, and then it's the same grade level with the state information, so you can see how our district compares to the state. And I have the data from last spring and from this spring to show if our strands are different from year to year. The red indicates our weakest strand and the green indicates our strongest strand. And again, the first slide that I showed you will be the grade level by district. The second slide is the grade level by state. And that will be for each grade level. You can go to the State Department website and go to test scores, and then you can actually drill down to your own school and see how your school did in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. You could do that with your teachers if you wanted to in the department meeting. But it's interesting to see how we did in terms of those strands. In terms of text-dependent analysis information, I shared this as I met with coaches and principals in our initial meetings, but this just kind of gives you a little bit of information on the non-scorable codes that came up most often for students. If they got a 0, it was because they either copied items and directions or because the response was insufficient. So that just gives you a definition of what those two items mean. What the scores mean in terms of a does not meet, approaches, meets, or exceeds with what students scored. And then some information there on what the 2017 SC Ready ELA Data Review Panel suggested in terms of TDA instruction. And so in thinking of reflecting, just think about these questions here in terms of why we might have been low in some strands and high in others, what you're noticing overall about the SC Ready data, and maybe how these I can statements will help us in terms of planning. In terms of our next steps, how can we help our ELA teachers invest in the planning process? We want to think about that. And how do we ensure that we are planning with our students in mind? And what does that look like in the ELA classroom when we know that our students are the center of that or the heart of it, and that we've kept them in mind in terms of planning? And then we have our newsletter preview for September. I will send this out to all teachers, but you do have the preview here linked to that Word preview as well. And some things that you want to think about before our October meeting is how does your school or department articulate learning objectives or I can statements to students? So if you want to take pictures of some of the agendas in your building and bring them as artifacts, or just talk through how your agendas are set up if that's a school-wide initiative. So how are these I can statements articulated to students both in writing and verbally? And then just any other items here in the slide deck that you want to review with the department members. And I'll just have you put September and October's information all on one agenda or one document and send the meeting minutes to me at the end of the October meeting. And then I've just listed the focus for the September and October visits. We'll be talking about the TDA, we'll be talking about MAP, and we'll talk about feedback. We'll talk about our Achieve coaching visits and what that would look like. If you have any questions or additions or concerns, please let me know after you go through this and listen to the screencast and kind of go through the slide deck before sharing with your teachers. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, October 9th at the district office in room A132. And I hope that you guys have a wonderful rest of the time off if you're not too busy trying to do the cleanup. And if there's anything I can do, please let me know. I'm here for you. I'll talk to you later.